Hey there, Empowered Tribe. It's Angela T. Moore. You are getting ready to experience the second episode of Empowered, a health and wellness podcast where I share my personal journey of health and healing, tips for mental and physical health, interviews with health and wellness experts, and those bold enough and vulnerable enough to share their own journeys to empower you to succeed in yours. We know that life can be rewarding. It can also be challenging. It has its ups and downs, highs and lows. I learned that with a strong mind and a fit body, you are better able to grow through and grow from whatever life throws your way. My goal is to share journeys of health and wellness, as well as tips and information from extraordinary people all around the world to help you live an empowered life. My guest, Anthony Beven, is a health coach and detox specialist. He has expertise in multi-modality DNA and spiritual healing, hormonal resets, pain management, therapeutic hypnosis, nutritional detox, and naturopathy, as well as wellness brand consultancy. He offers the unique perspective of both patient and provider, passion through pain. In this episode, Anthony shared his personal health and healing journey after being diagnosed with HIV and cancer, and the many ways that he has helped numerous individuals heal themselves as well as become their own health advocates. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Anthony, in 2017, you battled from the brink of near-death health crisis following back-to-back HIV and cancer diagnoses, which you have openly shared, which I understand prompted a spiritual awakening and actually led you to open up Detox Day Spa. I would like you to go back to 2017, and if you could talk about what it was like to get that back-to-back diagnoses.
Well, I mean, you're in a crisis, right? Mm-hmm. You're in a physical crisis, you're in a mental crisis, you're in a spiritual crisis. You're questioning everything. You're questioning everybody. So, you have to kind of get through the madness somehow, right? You have to find the focus. And I think that meditation, but, also seeking out, sources that you might not typically go to, right? Because the answers aren't coming in the way that they used to before, or they're not easily coming to you.
But, I still didn't hear what it was like, though, for you, because I know about times in my life when I've gone to the doctor and there may be just a hint of a potential problem. Fortunately, I haven't received a life-changing diagnosis. I've been able to kind of navigate my way through life with some minor, illnesses here and there. But to get something like a HIV diagnosis and a cancer diagnosis is a life-changing, it's a life-changing moment for you.
Totally life-changing, for sure. I mean, and physically speaking, my body was in complete inflammation. Okay. Top and bottom eyelids were swollen. Mm-hmm. I had a severe sinus infection. My throat was swollen. It was hard for me to swallow. My stomach was bloating.
Mm-hmm.
I was crapping blood. I was sweating my butt out every single night, right? Mm-hmm. It was scary for me because the doctor's solution was, let's get you on these medications. Okay, let's try medication, but then we ran into the health insurance hurdles of the first medication that she wrote a prescription for, they denied. Okay. And you don't just write another one, there's a process you have to follow. So then the second one got denied. But in the meantime, we're still filing, appeals on these. So there was like a few months of that. Mm-hmm. I was only getting sicker, I wasn't getting any better. Their response was, let's try these vaccines. And something inside of you knows if something's going to work or not. I think you have a higher self that, is guiding you toward, really what is the true healing inside of you. I was like, I don't think vaccines are going to work. And they're like, what do you think's going to work? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know. Like, we got to flush my body, reset, rebuild my immune system. And they're like, well, how do you think we should do that then if you're saying that what we're doing isn't going to work for you? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I don't know, let's do diet, let's maybe do supplements. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we don't do that, we're doctors. I'm going to have to find a nutritionist or a naturopath to do that. And I'm like, okay. And so then I did. I was, seeking others out, but I did not feel like they knew what was going on inside of my body, right? Like, you know how you need something, but you don't know what it is until you hear somebody say it, and then you're like, that's exactly, right? Like I was talking to my cousin the other day. He's up from Louisville, and I was telling him about the Kundalini, right? And he's like, I didn't know that's what it was called, but I do that every day, right? Like I meditate to be able to clear my my chakras, and I'm like, yeah, that's totally what it's called. And he's like, okay, but it wasn't until I went through it, right, and I kept moving and pushing and then got to the point where I just hit a wall, right, and I felt suicidal, and so I texted a friend and I said, I think I'm going to kill myself, and she said, don't, and she sent me a link to the book called The Power by Rhonda Byrne.
The Power by who?
Rhonda Byrne.
Okay.
And so I listened to it, and then I listened to it again and again, and then everything started to make sense. She wrote The Secret, by the way. She's got, I think, 4 books. It's a series. So the first one is The Secret, the second one is The Power, the third one is The Magic, and I forget the name of the fourth one, but The Power really made sense. And she talks about manifesting in every aspect of your life, but she's got a chapter talking about how do you manifest your health, right? How do you manifest, what you're looking for when you're trying to heal? And so I kept listening to that chapter, and then, and throughout that, she also talks about other stuff, but I was like, I'm going to make a karmic agreement, right? If you show me how to save my life, I'll live my life for you. And then over a series of days, days, months, years, and then this download recently completed. And I think I mentioned to you that I got sick again at the beginning of the year, but first download was enzymes, right? Enzymes are life. Enzymes are the biochemical starter to everything that happens inside of the body, right?
Okay.
Along with the mineral cofactor.
Okay.
I didn't know this at the time, but nobody really could help me.
Okay.
I could have only helped myself. And now I really can only help people who are really chronically sick like myself and like I've been, right? Because 5 out of my 6 MTHFR/methylation genes are mutated. So the methylation gene group is responsible for a lot of things inside of the body.
Okay.
It's responsible for creating pathways to and through your detox organs, like your liver, as well as your detox systems, like your lymphatic system. It's responsible for converting folate to usable form inside of the body. You need folate to build new red blood cells. It's responsible for breaking homocysteine down to another amino acid that is a key building block for protein inside of the body. It is responsible for helping the body to metabolize estrogen for women and eridol for men, which is the male version of estrogen. None of those things were happening for me, right? So the body is machining. It either breaks down or it converts. Nothing was happening inside of my body. So when you don't have any key functionality within your methylation gene group, and that is really the key gene group inside of the body, right? Then you get sick and you stay sick. So none of the doctors that I was talking to, none of really even the holistic professionals that I was talking to or practitioners would have known that. There's not a lot of people who know about DNA and genetics unless you're going to like a geneticist, but it's very rare that you would seek a geneticist out to talk about, well, why am I so sick? Why do I have HIV? And then why did 3 months later I have cancer, right? It's not common that you're going to get a referral, and you know how the medical system works. You have to go to your primary care to be able to be referred out to a specialist. So, and they don't always do that. So, the conversation is, well, why do you need that? So sometimes it's even a hurdle in and of itself to even getting to a specialist, right? But to get to a geneticist, right? That's really probably very difficult.
Question though, and I want to stop you just because I want to make sure I understand, because quite honestly, I think about when someone goes to the doctor and the doctor has told them that they're very sick. They're most likely going to do what most people do. They're going to take the medicine the doctor prescribes, and then they're going to hope that the doctor's prescribed the right medication. It sounded like you, though, once you heard what the doctor told you, you listened to the recommendation of the doctors, you had a pretty clear idea of what needed to happen to kind of start your healing journey. But why did you know that information, Anthony? And what was it about your life at that time that allowed you to have that knowledge to be able to be truly what I hope most people can be as a health advocate, an advocate for your own health?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, I was laying in bed one day, and I was sick, right? And I remember hearing the word ancestral DNA, and I texted my Aunt Lisa. She's really smart, right? She went to school, got a master's degree, and I said, "What is ancestral DNA?" She's like, "I don't know, Anthony, to be honest." But when I made that karmic agreement, you open your consciousness up to higher levels of understanding and information. I know now today what it is, right? And so once you figure out the physical DNA, and then you figure out the spiritual DNA, which is, the Kundalini, right? Ascending through the 7 main chakras. Well, once you hit the 7th chakra, the crown chakra, increased oil releases, okay? And then that gives you access to the 5 additional chakras, which is essentially Christ consciousness or Akashic records. So that is all of your ancestral knowledge, all of the knowledge from your bloodline, right? And so when I texted my aunt, I didn't even know what I was asking, right? I was just hearing it in my head, repeat over and over.
Okay.
But all of the healing was within my physical DNA, my spiritual DNA, and my ancestral DNA. And once you figure out what the codes within each of those are, you can easily access the information internally that you need. You are your own healer, right? Our bodies were made to be able to regenerate. And so once you figure that out, then you realize that this is what I need doctors for. This is what I need nutritionists for. This is what I need naturopaths for. And then you're able to put them in the right buckets instead of relying on one or the other for anything and everything with regard to your health. Now I know my body so well. And I think, we talked recently where I told you, and I had shingles a few times, right?
Right.
Well, because I've had it a few times, it feels like a Charlie horse starting in your thigh. And so then I knew immediately I'm going to take proteolytic enzymes. I'm just going to load my system up with proteolytic enzymes, and I'm going to put a bunch of magnesium lotion on that so I don't get a break. Because if you've ever had shingles, it's painful.
I've heard it's painful. I have not had the personal experience, but I know a couple of people that have had shingles, and they describe it as something that I don't think you'd want to wish on your worst enemy, quite honestly, yeah.
Not only have I had shingles, though, but I've had kidney stones. I even had shingles, they're called ocular herpes, but in the eye, right? I almost lost my eyesight.
Oh, wow.
In my 20s. So, but this all goes back to the fact that my body can't create methylation pathways to my liver, but also what I discovered, and along, as I was going through my journey was that I'm missing the gene that codes for stage 2 of the liver detox process, which is blood cleansing for precarcinogens and environmental toxins. So it's like a double whammy, right? But my situation is not uncommon. Hispanics are the most impacted by the MTHFR / methylation genetic disorders.
Okay.
It's funny because one day I was talking on my social media, and one of my followers had commented, he's like, "Why are Hispanics the most impacted?" And I started thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know. So then I started looking into it, right? And what I found out, and this is really interesting, Angela, is that when Hernan Cortez came to colonize Mexico and the Aztecs, the Mayans, that didn't work out the way he thought it was going to, right? So then he left, came back with salmonella and smallpox.
Oh, no.
That is what devastated those populations, okay? That stayed in the bloodline. And even today, they don't commonly test for those things, right? You have to grow a culture. Doctors aren't growing cultures all over the place, you know what I mean? So then what I discovered was that event had passed through to modern day Hispanics, and then Hispanics getting with white people and getting with black people, right? And now what do we see? They say 60% of Americans are chronically sick, right? I think it's even closer to probably like 70 or 80%. But as a result of the crossbreeding with the Hispanics, right? And so now you've got the underlying cause of all chronic illness being these mutations, right? Which doctors really don't know anything about. So it's really up to you to, like you said, become your own health advocate, your own health expert.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I have recognized is something that you actually touched on, is the importance of having a team of people that are advocating for your health. So often we go just to one doctor. We really rely on our primary care physician to be able to identify when we're ill, identify if there are some issues that need to be addressed, and then, as you say, if appropriate, recommend us or suggest that we visit a specialist and get, more specific care. But one of the things that I've recognized throughout my health and healing journey is that there are many times when you come across individuals that specialize in specific things. They're going to have more knowledge and information and experience with things as it relates to your health. And you benefit by going to those people that specialize in specific areas, because they're going to see things that a generalist is not going to see. And they're going to be able to provide the more specific medical care, nutrition care, advice that's going to help you get healthy. I want to ask you, so as you've gone through this journey and as you have helped other people advocate for their health, talk about some of those health warriors that you have encountered that have been able to help you during your health journey.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of people in my family, right? And again, that ties back to the ancestral DNA that have been or have experienced, either physical illness or some type of mental illness. I had a cousin who died of AIDS.
Okay.
I have family members who had, severe mental disorders, and it impacted their life. And, I could see that. We only really look at the physical, right? And so we think that's a physical ailment, right? But what I've learned in and not only, working with, tons of chronically sick clients, right? My story is not exclusive. I have a client right now who, I had, at my lowest point, I had 20 T cells. Your T cells are your frontline defender and your white blood cell group. Healthy people need to maintain 1,000 to 1,500. But if you're immunocompromised with something like HIV, healthy ranges between 500 and 750, 800.
Okay.
So at my lowest point, I was at 20. But the client that I just mentioned, she was at 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So recently, we started, working on some intense stuff, right? Going through, this new program they have, DNA trifecta, which addresses the physical, the spiritual, and the ancestral.
Right.
So, but she was at a point where it was really hard for her to walk, right? She couldn't walk.
Yeah.
It was hard for her. She was having issues with her eyesight, hearing. So, her body was, shutting down, right?
Right. It's not defending itself, basically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so she said, test me for this, right? Same thing. So 5 out of her 6 are mutated. She's missing the gene that codes for stage 2 of the liver detox process. So it's not, I always ask everybody about their healing journey, whether they're a practitioner or a client, because it helps me in my own understanding, but it also helps me move along in my healing journey.
I see.
So, one of my mentors, she really is into really the whole spiritual aspect of things, right? And she would always say to me, that is not physical. She's like, that's a trapped emotion.
I do believe, yeah, I completely understand that.
I was a realist, right? Like, I would, if it's physical, there's some type of something causing it, right?
Right.
That I would never, I'm not I wasn't thinking Ghostbusters or something like that. But I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? And so what you understand and what you realize as you go through, and there's a great book out there called The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson, and I think he's one of the pioneers in trapped emotions. But what you find out is that when there's a traumatic event, that trauma, that negative energy will stay in the physical form. It'll go to the weakest parts of the body, typically organs, right, or tissue. It'll fester and it'll build, and it'll either cause an overproduction or an underproduction of the hormones that organ is responsible for producing, right? So when you understand what the traumas are, right, and that's why, and then, again, it's like, you're saying, you have to have a team of people. Well, sometimes you got to be the team, right? For yourself.
Yes.
Because I kind of go, my mind always goes back to that instance where the doctor was like, well, we can't help you. And so it's so hard to find somebody. So it's like, you might as well just, do it yourself.
Okay. So are you saying basically, so it may mean, reading a number of books on different topics as it relates to your health. So the author may be the expert, may be the member of your team. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So you have to seek out the information. The information might not be that somebody that your doctor refers you out to. It might not be somebody that you ask for a referral, from a group of friends or colleagues, right? And say, hey, do you know anybody who does this?
Right.
Sometimes you got to get on Google and Google around. Sometimes you have to go on TikTok, and TikTok's a great search engine now too. So sometimes you got to get on there and look for terms that you're hearing in your head, right? Look for terms that, your higher self is giving you, right? Look for signs, right? Like, signs happen, you get signs every single day, right? But, if you get a repeated sign like 333 or something like that, to go Google it. Or, if you're seeing repeated numbers, go Google it, and then you are your own health investigator as well. So not only should you be your own health expert, but you should also constantly seek out additional information on how to heal the body, because, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, right? You have to look at healing from, not only, body, mind, and soul. So.
Right. It's interesting, Anthony, because I remember meeting you, years ago, and you and I have helped people kind of navigate through their health journeys in different ways. Myself as a therapist and a trainer, you with Detox was your primary focus when I met you.
Yep.
And I've seen you evolve over the years, and I think that we are responsible, when you personally experience a health crisis, to share with other people how you were able to navigate through that health crisis, as well as the information that you have learned along the way. And I think if you're able to bring a level of expertise to someone's health journey, you can help them even further. So, meaning that if someone comes to you and they pay for your services and they're looking for you to provide them with the information that they need to make healthier decisions, I think that's great. But I think when you personally have had to overcome different challenges and obstacles, and if you've had to heal yourself in many ways, someone that's ill that reaches out to you, you're going to be able to connect with them on a more deeper level, and which I think is more impactful. And I think it allows us to be more effective when someone comes to us versus when someone goes to maybe a primary care physician, and they're looking for that primary care physician to give them recommendations for their health. But based on what I think that I have found is that oftentimes when you go to a primary care physician, and not to knock primary care physicians or any physician, something that I think you have to be careful of is recognizing if that primary care physician or that specialist is up to date, is always seeking ways to acquire new...
The practice of medicine, right?
Yeah, information. And they're open-minded to be challenged with the status quo of what they have been experiencing with their patients. And so I think that when you go into an office, whether you go into an office to visit someone like you and I, or you go to visit a primary care physician or a specialist or whatever, I think those are the kind of questions that you, I think, should ask. You know, where are you in your own spiritual journey? The information that you're sharing with me, is this information that you have been saying for 20 years? Or is this based on some new,
Because people are going to Google you. They will. You know that.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I just started a nonprofit, you know that, the Chronic Illness Foundation. One of the goals of that nonprofit is to put educational programs in place for doctors on that spectrum of healing, right? So It's not just the body, but it's also the spiritual and the ancestral components to it, right? Mm-hmm. But also too, there's another program that, you know, that's within my nonprofit, which is called Heal the Healers, right? So everything you're saying, you have to be empathetic to their situation.
Most definitely.
You have to have walked the walk to be able to talk the talk, and you have to be able then to take them by the hand and say, okay, I'm going to get you to this point. And then, you know, are you comfortable? Do you feel like you have enough knowledge to be able to move it through? If not, cool, then you reach out to me when you need me, right? And that's how I work with my clients. I don't ever want to be, you know, like, I don't want to be a primary care kind of resource for them. Mm-hmm. I want them to be able to be their own resource for themselves, right? So that's really important that that you have gone through it, to be able to have the empathy, to be able to, you know, help people heal. Now, you're not healing people. Well, I shouldn't say that. You are capable of healing anybody, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody is capable of healing themselves, right? It is our job as healers to be able to activate the codes and the knowledge within that individual's body, mind, and spirit, right? Mm-hmm. It is not up to us to, you know, continuously say, you know, like, there are some practitioners who do that, whether they're medical or holistic, where they keep coming back, right? And that's kind of where I was at with my practice as well, where it was like, you know, my clients kept coming back to me every 6 months or every year, and they like, do the detox for me, do the nutritional detox for me. Okay. I need to do another reset. And I got to the point where I said, why? What traumas are going on within your life that caused you to revert back to what, you know, the way that you were eating? Yeah. Well, whatever it was, you know, they got a divorce, or, you know, their son or daughter's, you know, significant other died, their pet died, whatever it was. But then that trauma was staying trapped, right? And then it was messing with the hormones inside of the body, which are the cellular level messengers, right? So, you know, yes, the enzymes are life, but then, you know, how are the different parts of the body going to, you know, talk to each other? And that's the other important thing too. It's a continued, you know, learning experience for you. Like, you know, like I said, the practice of medicine, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the practice of healing. So in helping others heal, you can also take that knowledge and apply it to your own life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I think is really important that you kind of touched on is the mental aspect of being unwell. And I don't think a lot of people connected to an understanding that trauma can make you sick. And traumas that we experience each and every day that we're unaware that we're experiencing, that we've normalized, can make us very sick. And it's really interesting because I had a conversation with a young lady, and we were talking about how oftentimes people don't realize the state that they're in, the state of being unwell, the state of being sick, because it doesn't happen like, you know, one day you're okay and then one day you're drastically ill. It doesn't happen like that for a lot of people. It's a series of days that go by where you're gaining weight, you know, where you're not taking care of yourself, you're not sleeping well, you're not feeling, you're noticing some issues with your skin, your hair, you're noticing some issues throughout your body. And then one day it gets it gets bad enough that it prompts you to go to the doctor. And I think that's the situation for most people, just like we have things throughout our lives that are traumatic to us, that are hurtful to us. Unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships at home, at work, difficult situations and circumstances that have become our life, that we live day in, day out, and monthly, and then year, and then
like you said, you normalize the trauma and the drama.
Yeah. But what you don't realize is that it's making you sick.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing is that you have people that may come to you and they have experienced something that has set them back. And that's caused them to where you have given them advice and given them suggestions of ways to, eat better, take better care of themselves. Something happened that shifted them.
But they're only hearing it in the consciousness, right? And so that's why I was like, I have to start doing hypnotherapy with people, right? I have to induce them and put them into their subconscious, access their higher self to help them reprogram themselves, right? I'm not programming them, but they're programmed every single day with what you're saying, the normalizing the traumas and the dramas by, watching the TV, the social media, just general interactions within their life and their work, right? And so, that's part of, now what I say to people is, hey, I'm not going to do the detox for you until we do these hypno sessions.
Right. Well, it's kind of like the same thing as we, kind of bring the show today to an end. It's kind of the theme that I do with my clients, understanding that we have to do some work so that we don't have a pattern that keeps repeating itself. Right?
Totally.
That's basically what you're saying.
You don't want to be in Groundhog Day with them.
Right.
You want them to get to the place where they heal and they can sustain the healing.
Right. Any final words that you want to say?
Well, I think the takeaway is to, constantly seek out, higher levels of consciousness for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're supposed to do in this life. We're supposed to, seek out additional information and challenge, our belief system, right? Because what our belief system, like we were just saying, everything becomes so normalized for us that we really want to get to the place where, it's just so normal, but it really wasn't what the normal thing was, when we look back 10 years later. And I do that all the time. I look back, 10 years ago and I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have done things differently, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your life, your journey, to spend it with me and to share your words of wisdom with those that are listening today. I'm excited to see the rest of your journey.
Yeah. You too. It's all, like I said, it's always great to be able to, see other people, move forward in their healing journey. And then as they help others, you do that. I do the same thing. So
yeah. Well, thank you, Anthony. It's been great.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Empowerment with Angela T. Moore. Feel free to share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it. New episodes come out weekly. Follow our show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now.